You're an awesome broadcaster. Congratulations on getting into the National Baseball Hall of Fame. Let's give him a round of applause. Maybe you could say a brief line about each of these three. These are my favorite broadcasters of all time in baseball.
Well, Harry Kalas was the great voice of the Phillies, and just one of the great voices, period. I think better known around the country because he was the voice of NFL films. You know, we were used to hearing Harry with the frozen tundra of Green Bay, Wisconsin. In Philadelphia, it was a line drive in the left center field. That's going to be extra bases. Jack Schmidt, out of here. And Richie Ashburn, I don't know much about him as a broadcaster, but I know that he was an outstanding player.
Hall of Fame player.
Great sense of humor. One of my favorite baseball stories of all time was told by Richie Ashburn. His final year as a big league player was with the Mets. And he was a great center fielder, you know, won some Gold Gloves and just outstanding out there in center field. And with the Mets, you know, this is one of the worst teams in the history of the game. They lost 120 games, the original Mets. And Ashburn, who had never, going after a fly ball or a pop-up, ever collided with an outfielder or anybody 6 times in a 2-week period, going after a pop-up, not only collided with somebody, it was always the same guy, the shortstop, Elio Chacon. And it was always the same story. It was a pop fly, shallow center. Ashburn came running in, and Chacon would go racing out, and then Ashburn would go, I got it, and catch the ball, and then Chacon, as if not hearing him, would slam into him, knock the ball flying, and then, you know, Richie had cracked ribs and, you know, teeth that had knocked out of his head. And so finally he's very frustrated, and Joe Christopher, one of his teammates who spoke Spanish, said to Richie, you know, Chacon doesn't speak any English. Maybe he doesn't get I got it. And so he says, try yo lo tengo. So Richie memorizes this. He's like, yo lo tengo, yo lo tengo. You know, he sits with his wife the night before the next game, and he's in front of the TV going, yo lo tengo, yo lo tengo. And his wife, Richie, honey, would you like something to eat? He says, yo lo tengo. Now he's at the Polo Grounds the next day before the game, and he's in his locker doing this like a mantra. He's yo lo tengo, yo lo tengo. Get this. So it'll be second nature to him. Now he heads out to the field. He goes right by Chacon's locker, and he says, Elio, yo lo tengo. And heads on out, and you know, Chacon's like, yeah, no problem, Richie. Sure enough, in the first inning of this game, there's a pop fly in the shallow left center field. Chacon breaks back from shortstop. Ashburn comes racing in from center and starts screaming, yo lo tengo, yo lo tengo. And Chacon veers off out of his way. And Ashburn, with a big smile on his face, reaches out, makes the catch. And then Frank Thomas, the left fielder, who spoke no Spanish, crashed into him. It was a triple, and there was blood, and the two of them are wrapped around each other like a pretzel out in the shallow left center field. And Frank Thomas looks at Richie, and they're laying on the ground there. He says, Richie, what the hell is a yellow tango?
The only names ever got him in a fight with Elio Chacon.
Yeah, 62. That's
picked him up, and I guess Elio whacked him when he was sliding in second, and literally picked him up and threw him to the ground.
He did, yeah. It's like all-star wrestling broke out in the second. But Kruko Kuiper, I've talked about them, and Joe Morgan. I mean, Joe and I worked together for 21 years, and you know, to me, I enjoyed just being able to pick his brain. So, you know, ESPN got rid of us, but as my wife will tell you, you know, as she says over and over again, thank God. Should have done it years ago.
And you live on an airplane.
She was always the one sending the letters saying, why don't you get rid of those guys?